ask you to turn to John chapter 10. John chapter 10. And again, I want to echo Carl and welcome all of you who are guests this morning. And we're very glad you're here, and especially if you're here for the first time. Just glad you're here. Maybe this will be a place you will be this new year, or at least a part of this new year, and we're very glad to have you here. I want to remind all of us that this coming Wednesday evening, there is some sense of normalcy that will resume with our adult Bible classes. Men's ministry is just having looking at a variety of subjects, and I want to encourage you to consider that class. There is a class where a group is reflecting on women of the Bible, and you might enjoy that class. The class that I normally teach on Wednesday night, we're doing a different subject every month, and this month is something I've called 20 suggestions for starting a new year, for starting 2012. And maybe one or two of those will be helpful to you. So I want to encourage you to consider coming this Wednesday night. Well, our good friend, Bob Pearson, passed away yesterday, and his funeral is Tuesday, and more will be said about that later. But we certainly want to be mindful. We certainly want to be mindful of Sandra and the Pearson families, Scott and Jill, and Kyle and Allison, and then the Dillon family, Steve and Stephanie, and then this large group of grandchildren. And these are just people that have been a part of this church for a long time, and we want to be in prayer for them. I hope you're at John chapter 10. That'll be helpful in a moment. John 10. Let's begin reading with verse 1. I tell you the truth. The man who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The man who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The watchman opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but they did not understand what he was telling them. Therefore, Jesus said again, I tell you the truth, I am the gate for the sheep. All who ever came before me were thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate, and whoever enters through me will be saved. He will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they might have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep. My sheep know me. He goes on to say, I lay down my life for my sheep. Well, there are lots of voices, and there is a lot of noise, and a whole lot of us communicate, but fewer of us ever connect. A whole lot of us communicate, but fewer of us ever connect. I brought my cell phone with me. Some of you are looking at yours right now. They're not reading their mail. They're looking at the Bible on their cell phone. Do some of y'all have yours with you? Do you? Okay. And it's not going to ring, is it, or anything? You've taken care of that. I've got mine with me. And you know what it's like to be in a position today where there is the opportunity, and I'm not sure about that word, but there is the opportunity to communicate almost immediately. Because after all, your cell phone rings, but then you get a text. You better check your email. You better answer that text. Oh my goodness, what about your Facebook status? Did you get a tweet? They want to Skype this afternoon. Your phone's ringing again. And on and on and on it goes. You ever been a part of a gathering where people were at a table and nobody talked, they just did this? You ever been a part of a gathering like that? You ever been in a car that was totally quiet, that had all kinds of human beings in it, and everybody was doing this? I just got distracted. I made the mistake of pushing my button, and Mark Driscoll had sent me a note. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, and it just kind of stops what you're doing. Maybe you're talking to all these people, but all of a sudden you start reading your text. All kinds of opportunities to communicate. But sometimes it's harder to connect. We got married, and my wife said, "We need to talk." Well, she acted like that was something I was going to struggle with, but I thought we talked all the time. I don't know if I'm supposed to stand in one place we talked all the time. And it seemed like we would talk, and then she said, "We don't talk." Well, I'd said all I knew to say. Every man in here understands what I just said. Well, what I learned later on is that she didn't mean let's communicate. She meant let's connect. Now, communication is a part of connecting, but it's not the same thing. Here's the amazing thing. In a culture where we have all kinds of opportunities to communicate, sometimes we really struggle connecting with our husbands and wives. Sometimes it's hard to get Dad's attention because he keeps doing this. Sometimes it's hard to get your teenager's attention because she keeps doing this. It's one thing to communicate, it's another thing to connect. Well, you remember this story that Tom Long shared, and I shared it with you. It's the story that Princeton, New Jersey old-timers love to tell. It's the story of one day this New York Society matron drove her touring car in the 1940s down over to New Jersey and parked in front of the Princeton Inn, which in those days was apparently a nice hotel. She got out of her car, saw this little man in front of the hotel, put her luggage down in front of him, and then she fished around in her purse until she found a quarter, and she pressed it in the man's palm and says, "Take my luggage in right now." And then she regally breezed into the hotel lobby. And I picture her hands being like this, maybe not. I think you regally breeze like this. The man was walking to his office that day. He had left his house earlier. He was on his way to Princeton, where his office was, and he thought he would stop in front of the hotel to rest. He wasn't the doorman. He was Albert Einstein. And he was just walking from his house to his office. He looked at the quarter. He looked at her luggage, shrugged his shoulders, picked up the luggage, walked into the hotel lobby, set it down, and went on to his office. Mistaken identity. She thought she had seen a doorman, and she had missed the most distinguished scientist of our time. Well, sometimes we mistakenly think that we're connecting when all we're doing is talking. Where do you begin in 2012? I think the place to begin in 2012 is by connecting with Jesus himself. Jesus himself. And when you connect with Jesus himself, then you can connect with God, and guess what? Your marriage can take on a whole new flavor. There is a way to learn to connect with one another in marriage. There is a way we can learn to connect with our children and our mothers and dads. We refuse, entering a year, we refuse to just let the same old be what we accept and what we settle for. So let's start with Jesus. And I think one way to connect with Jesus is by paying attention to this image, the way he describes himself as a shepherd. Now, I'm from the city. One time I referred to a John Deere tractor in this room as a red John Deere tractor. And there are all sorts of people who I'll remember forever who came up and reminded me that there ain't no such thing. That tells you how much I know, huh? I'm a city guy. Well, even we city guys ought to know something about shepherds if we're going to get a handle on who Jesus is. You know, I am a shepherd. I am the good shepherd. I am the shepherd who lays down his life for his sheep. I am the shepherd, and this is the most important thing this morning, I am the shepherd with a voice. And my sheep, his followers, know my voice. And when the shepherd calls, the sheep come. How about that? He is even the shepherd who, when the sheep in the evening are taken into a pen, will lie down in front of the opening there as a gate and protect the sheep. I am the good shepherd. His father was referred to as a shepherd. Remember the 23rd Psalm? The Lord is my what? Shepherd. And the spiritual leaders of Israel in Jeremiah, in Ezekiel, and Isaiah were referred to as shepherds. Well, I want to talk for just a minute about what Jesus does for us as a shepherd. Here's number one. Oh, by the way, I made a big mistake. On the back of your order of worship, if you're trying to follow that, that has nothing to do with this morning. Yeah, I goofed. I decided to go a different route. And it was already in print pay, and so there it is right there. So it has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm saying right now. So I'm sorry, I should have said that earlier, and you can keep drawing if you're drawing a picture or whatever you're doing. This is not anywhere on the paper. A couple of things that the shepherd does for us. One thing Jesus does for us all, and you, if you want to write these three down, or if there's one in particular that helps you, Jesus guides us. Jesus guides us. You know, on this silly phone, there is this little app, the map. And right now there's a blue dot. Those of you several acres back over there, there's a blue dot right here, and it shows where my body is. Isn't that kind of weird that you can like turn this on and somehow your body shows up with this blue dot? I mean, that's weird. And it tells you where you are. It says we're at Delhi and near Topeka. Well, and it's just flashing. It's moving now. Anyway, it's flashing. We were traveling, during Christmas, we were traveling from Nashville, Tennessee, to Oklahoma City. It was night, and our GPS was on, and that's nice. You know, kind of takes away the thinking a little bit. And I'm driving along, and this woman gives us this assurance: you're headed the right way, keep going, move ahead, everything's fine. And then we get to Oklahoma City, and she says, exit next right. And I look at her. She's in that little box. And I look at her and I say, there is no way you get to our daughter's house by going down that road. So I refused to do it. And I went past what she said to do, and she said, turn around. And I said, no. And then I kept going, and she said, exit next right. And then make a left and go under the... I knew what she was trying to pull. You know, she wants you to go back there. And I said, no. And so I kept going, and then she gave up and recalibrated. Well, those GPS, that's nice. Do you understand that the words of Jesus, they really are a GPS for life? He not only will tell you where you are, but where you need to be going and where you need to be headed. Who's for that? Yeah, we're for that. We're good people. Sunday morning, that's why we're good people. We're in church on Sunday morning. That's a good thing. We're for that. We're for that until it feels like it won't work. Until it feels like I think I could be happier if I kept going past that exit. I still wonder if she was right. We wonder, we say, Lord, I'm all for that, but I think there may be something else you want me to do. Lord, I've tried that marriage for a long time, or I've tried this handling it the right way for a long time, and I got a right to be happy. And so I ignore what God says. Even when the Lord is saying, exit here and turn back. And I ignore that. Why? Because I have decided I do not need Jesus to guide me, because I'm not sure He'll lead me to happiness. Listen, I'm telling you, you can trust in Jesus to guide you. He will not lead you astray. He won't. You can trust Jesus to protect you. Now, little footnote here. Protection does not mean absence of pain. We live in a broken world. There is pain in this world. There is sometimes pain in relationships. There's sometimes pain emotionally. There's sometimes pain because of what we experienced growing up. There's sometimes physical pain. Pain is a part of what it means to live in a broken world. But Jesus' protection means that He will not abandon us. He will not let us go. He will not leave us out here to flounder for ourselves. And then, boy, Jesus has a way of clarifying life. He brings some clarity to life. Y'all ever been so confused you didn't know what to do? You didn't know what you were feeling. You didn't know what to think. Jesus has a way of adding real clarity to life. Now, today it's sort of seen as good. It's sort of seen as good to be neutral about many things. Somebody's talking about bailing out of their marriage. I don't know about this thing. Well, I'm this person's friend. If I'm really into contemporary neutral thinking, I'm going to respond something like this. Well, I can't really offer an opinion here. All I can tell you is you need to follow your heart. You need to do what you think will bring you happiness. That's interesting. You mean I don't say anything about the covenant of marriage? I don't say anything about some possibilities for dealing with the brokenness of this marriage. I don't say anything about the value of preserving a marriage. Now, a friend of mine suggested this scenario. Let's suppose a friend comes up to you and she says, this parenting thing isn't what I thought it would be. I'm still young, relatively speaking. I'm still young, and I think I've got a life ahead of me, and I'm tired of these kids. I'm tired of coming home and being treated the way I'm treated. I'm tired of putting up with all this mess. I'm tired of spending hard-earned money on their clothes. I'm out of here. We would look at that person and go, what? Would you tell me what that means? You're about to abandon a 7, 8, and 12-year-old? You can't do that. You can't just decide as a parent that you're done. See, there's a point where we realize I can't be morally neutral about this. Now, Jesus, what he did is he adds clarity by clarifying what is important to his Father, and teaches us about an ethic not of being morally neutral, but of valuing love and fidelity and commitment and honor. Jesus is a shepherd who brings into our lives guidance, protections, and clarity. So we can trust him, and we can rest in him, and we can experience some satisfying clarity. We really can. We had a baseball field behind our house. I'm talking about the house at 1948 Alhambra in Dallas. This is in Old Pleasant Grove. We had a baseball field. It was on the other side of the alley, right behind our house. Bethany Baptist Church owned it, and they let all the neighborhood kids play. In spring and summer months, we were out there, barefoot, cut-off jeans, dirty legs, white T-shirts. This is before colored T-shirts. White T-shirts, brown arms, just lots of dirt. We'd play and play and play, and then you would hear the mothers calling. It's time to eat! Supper's ready! Come to dinner! Now I want to try something. This is absolutely voluntary, but I need you guys to lead, okay? This is absolutely voluntary, but I need us to say dinner is ready. Okay? Dinner is ready. We can just say that together, and you're going to, before you say it, you're going to wonder if anybody else is, and so you'll hesitate before, you know how that works. That's why I depend on these guys, because they won't hesitate. Okay, can you say it with me? Dinner is ready. All right? Dinner is ready. Let's do it one more time.
Dinner is ready. Okay. Now, you guys know that there were lots of mothers and daddies who were saying that dinner is ready. I encourage you not to pay attention to most of them, except yours. And that's what we did on that baseball field. We ignored everybody's mama until it was my mama. Dinner's ready, and I'd say to Kip and Dale, I gotta go. That's my mother calling me. Now, it wasn't their mother, it was my mother. We are a people who are called to listen to one voice. There's all kinds of noise, all kinds of chatter, all kinds of information, all kinds of things all kinds of information coming and go. Where are you? What's my status? Everything coming and going, all kinds of words. But the one voice I want to pay attention to in terms of knowing where I am in God's GPS, where I am and where I need to be, the one voice I need to listen to is the shepherd. And the shepherd, Jesus, says that the real sheep listen to his voice. You can ignore all the other voices, but when the shepherd speaks, we do what? We pay attention. I first heard Dallas Willard say this a couple of years ago, and I thought about it, and now I really think I agree with him. Dallas Willard's written a number of fine books on the spiritual disciplines. Dallas Willard said that the number one problem in our lives as Christians is distraction. Distraction. And you know, I think he's right. Distraction. Because some of us have so much going on, so many voices are coming in, that our lives are about an inch deep. But we're moving along pretty quickly. And we get to the end of a day and we're exhausted. Boy, that was another day. But I'm about to slow down. You'll see. We've been saying that for a while. Distraction. Maybe the first thing to do as a family, as an individual, to deal with that is by asking myself, how much energy am I putting into listening to the voice of Jesus? Could it be that I need to stop for a moment every day and just simply pay attention to the Good Shepherd? I use this phone all the time. It was kind of fun. I thought it was funny. We got these phones 2 or 3 years ago, and I kind of goofed. I should have asked Jack. I should have asked you how to do this with Charlotte's addresses and phone numbers, because when hers was set up, everything I've got in my phone was dumped onto her phone. She's got people in there she's never heard of, phone numbers and emails from, I can't, they're all in there. I'm sorry, and there's so many in there. I don't know how to get them out right now. You know, we use these things all the time, and they're good. And all of the things your kids are in, volleyball, basketball, some play football. Then we got the Little League, and we got the All-Stars, and we got the summer deal going, and we got music camp, and we got all, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. But if I could encourage you to start off a year by just thinking, what is all of this distraction doing to our lives as a family? You say, well, I want my kid to experience everything. Let them experience a real conversation with you. That doesn't take place as you're racing across town with a burger being stuffed down your... somehow to come back to listening to the voice of Jesus and then deciding, what are we going to do at this point? Luciano Pavarotti had this beautiful tenor voice. I'm told that in many circles, he basically set the standard for what a pristine tenor should sound like in operas. I don't know. That's just what I'm told. Pavarotti died a few years ago at the age of 71, died in a little community in northern Italy. He was being interviewed one day, and the interviewer asked him about his voice. Pavarotti said, I think an important quality that I have is that if you turn the radio on and there is singing, you know if it's me. And then he said, you don't confuse my voice with another voice. The shepherd, the faithful shepherd, is asking us to listen to his voice. I encourage you, go to his words. Go to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Start there. Find out what is especially important to Jesus. And what does your life look like next to Matthew 5, 6, and 7, the Sermon on the Mount? That one voice. And when you really go through it, I'm telling you, it's been a hard week for a lot of folks in this church. A lot of us have just watched the Pearson family, and it's been difficult. It's been difficult to watch them grieve their father and grandfather. What do you do with all that as a believer? What do you do with some of the things you are dealing with? What do you do with your worry right now about finances? I think the place to start is that we listen to one voice. We listen to one voice. I want to tell you, if you're married and you guys are struggling, you will never be able to deal with your marriage or your life by ignoring all of God's warning signals as you go your own way. If you're a parent and you know your child is just absolutely living a sinful life, you will never, ever be able to deal with that by just closing your eyes, thinking it'll go away. If you're living a secret life, you know what it is to drive to a little town and to meet someone and to kind of have this thing going on fairly regularly. And it is a relationship that is ungodly. The problem is not whether or not people know. The problem is you're not listening to the one voice. If you're starting a new year and you want this year to be something better, something different, something more noble, something filled with more meaning, I'm telling you, listen to the one voice. I was in Austin the other day. was visiting with a friend of mine. My friend is 60 years old. He was telling me about a conversation that he and his wife had within the recent weeks. My friend said, "What are we going to do for the next 10 years?" Talking to his wife. "What are we going to do over these next 10 years?" And they talked about this possibility, and they talked about that possibility. And then this is what they both came to, and I love this. He said, "We decided we are going to be better. We want to get to 70 years old and look back and see, we've gotten better over the last 10 years. Better. We're starting a new year. The one voice who we can count on has spoken, and you can count on him. His word is firm and solid and bring you clarity for your life." I want to encourage us to be thinking and praying about this. Would you do that? Would you be thinking and praying about this over the next week or so? And next week we'll shift a bit and talk about being intentional as families and as an overall congregation for the year. Right now, we're just going to offer a time of prayer. Our elders, some will be at the back, one or two will be at the front. You may just need to privately pray with someone this morning. And if you do not leave this room without doing that. I encourage you to pray with those elders. Maybe you've been thinking about being baptized and you're ready to be baptized into Christ. And I'm especially speaking to adults here. I want to encourage you. Make that decision now. Make that decision now. If you're ready this morning, we'll be glad to assist you. If you want to talk more about that, I'll be happy to talk with you. Jim, let's sing for a moment.